Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. You are listening to the winning book radio show, Off the Shelf. Welcome to the day before Thanksgiving. Listen to me. The day before Valentine's Day. And are you in for a treat? You know, it just worked out wonderfully that our guest author, the types of books she writes, I think are very fitting for Off the Shelf show for this Saturday, February 13th. Again, the day before Thanksgiving. And I want to thank you guys for joining us, especially our loyal listeners who've been with us going on 12 years. So thank you so much. And I'm so excited and can't wait to introduce you to the fabulous author we have on deck for today's Off the Shelf. But before I introduce you to our guest, I started doing this a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to leave you with a thought, just to plant a seed of thought in your mind, something to think about as you go through your day and the rest of this long holiday weekend. And that thought is, I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust myself to always reach my destination. Again, I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust myself to always reach my destination. And that quote's from Jimmy Dean. And next, as I tell you, I want to know how good of a mystery sleuth you are. How good are you really, if you're watching a movie or you're reading a book, at figuring out who done it before the movie reveals it or the book. Another question I want to ask you is, how much do you value relationships and love? If you love mysteries, you like figuring things out before it's revealed, and you value relationships that you see people change, you see people awaken and grow and develop, and you see a couple who is destined to be together, the ups and downs and the twists and turns they go through, including friendships and complicated family relationships. If you value that and you like to read books that not only entertain you, but maybe give you some aha moments that you can actually help change and improve your own life, I think you're going to love Pour Over Me. And you can get Love Pour Over Me in ebook or print format anywhere because it's carried by the largest book distributors in the world. If you don't see it on the bookstore shelf, just ask the clerk for it. You want a copy of Love Pour Over Me by Denise Turney. You can also get a copy of Love Pour Over Me at my website, which is www.chistell.com. Again, that's chistell.com. Please go get a copy of Love Pour Over Me and let me know how you enjoyed Love Pour Over Me. And now, let us go and meet our very special off-the-shelf guest. And our special guest today is W. Parks Brigham, and she is a Houston, Texas native. She's probably the second Texas native. We had a lady on earlier, and she was a proud Texan. So we have W. Parks Brigham, Houston, Texas native. She has a bachelor's in social work and a master's of education. She's a Christian, a mom, an avid book reader, and a romance writer. Senseless Misconceptions, Destined to Be, Who Am I Supposed to Love, Promises, Surviving the Storm, and You Weren't Meant for Me are some of the books that W. Parks Brigham has authored. So she is a prolific writer, off the shelf, listeners, and she combines her love of reading and writing to create great stories that we all can read and enjoy. And you can check her out online at www.wparksbrigham.com. She kept it simple, and it's spelled WPARKSBRIGHAM. Again, that's WPARKSBRIGHAM.com. WParksbrigham.com. And like I said, she was smart. She kept that URL simple. And that's one great marketing tip, off the shelf listeners, that you can take advantage of even before we get into the rest of the interview. So I just wanted to stress, as a marketing tip, it's important to make your URL available online. You don't want people to have to search for it. Keep it short, easy to remember and understand, and make sure people can find it online. We are absolutely delighted to have W. Parks Brigham with us on Off the Shelf Book Talk Radio this Saturday morning. So welcome to Off the Shelf, W. Parks.
Thank you.
We are so excited. Good morning to you. We're so excited to have you here with us and blessed to have you here with us. Now, we love here at Off the Shelf to give our listeners a bit of background on our awesome guest. So to kick off today's feature interview, could you tell us, W. Parks, what life was like for you growing up in Houston, Texas?
It was, you know what, I had to become an adult to realize how wonderful it was. I was fortunate to grow up in a two-parent home, a hard-working father, living in a neighborhood, going to the neighborhood school. I met friends, we started out in kindergarten, and we are still friends to this day.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, still friends to this day. So it was really nice. We, back in the day, the neighborhoods were the village. So you couldn't get it, if you did something and your mother or your father was not around, somebody saw it. So you just couldn't get away with doing things.
and you know what? That is the way it was
back then. Old school.
Have you always wanted to be a writer? And if not, what was it that inspired you to want to write?
I know I had no idea about being a writer. That was just not one of my things. I wanted to be a social worker and / fashion designer. But I love reading. I mean, when you say avid reader, I grew up reading. And in high school, well, it really started in elementary school. I started reading it, but I never thought about being an author. And I think, let's see, I'm trying to remember, Terry McMillan's book was one of the first. And I said, oh, this is good. Someone recommended. And so in the back of the book it said, if you like this story, you'll love the others. You'll love more like it. And so I ordered some books, and romance novels, and I said, wow. So I had the opportunity to go to Atlanta, and so you can imagine how that was. I was like a child in a candy store. I tried to buy all the black romance novels they had, and my sister said, Wanda, you don't have to buy them all. At any rate, I read, and so in reading, I said, everybody is a size 6, a size 4. Why not have a plus-size woman?
Mm-hmm.
That was number one. And then number 2, I said, well, I can do this. And I had a friend that said, oh, if you think you can, why don't you? So I wrote my first book as a dare.
Okay.
Sister's Misconception was my first book. And, of course, I had all kind of excuses. I can't type. I can't, I just can't write. I didn't think I could write it by hand. And then I was a school teacher, so, where was I going to get the time? Needless to say, I wrote the first book in tablets, and I loved every minute of it.
Well, what did you teach? We had another author who.
Fifth grade. I am a retired 5th grade teacher.
Did that influence your writing at all? So you even while you were teaching, you never thought, wow, I could write a novel myself.
No, isn't that amazing? No. Now, what happened though when I did start writing? I was determined to write the kind of material that I did not mind my children reading as they grew up. When I say my children, all of my classes that I taught, and they were the first book I wrote, they were aware that I was writing that book. And, and I dedicated it to them, but I wanted to make sure the language was good and my intimate scenes were decent. But, it's amazing that I never thought about writing. And when I was in elementary school, I used to, how the teachers assigned you to write papers and imaginary stories. I was good at that. They always wanted me to write, to read my story first. And because it had humor, they all, it was funny. They laughed. I didn't realize they were not. I thought they were laughing at me. They were not laughing at me. They were laughing at my writing. I mean, the story. So therefore, I had no writing a book. Now I'll tell you what I have done, because I am a writer, and that happened to me. I have encouraged other children, my children to write. And so I do have some who write poetry and short stories. They're not professional yet, but I take that back. I think one was telling me he did something with Disney, but I don't, I've lost with him. So that's the thing. I wasn't encouraged, because during my day we were encouraged to go to school to be teachers, nurses, doctors, lawyers, those kind of things.
Mhm. It really has changed over the that in itself is a topic for when, depending on when somebody was born here in this world, your options years ago were much more narrowly defined. Getting a job at the post office was like a great job.
Exactly. My father worked at
now nobody coming out of high school or college is like shooting for the post office, but that was, or getting on with a General Motors or somewhere. People told you, you get on over there, or like you say, become a teacher or working at a hospital. It's just it's opened up more for young people now.
Right.
I think the options, which I think are good, and then for you encouraging young people to write, they say writing is healing and self-expression. So thank you for doing that. Now, so you read when Terry McMillan came out with what, Waiting to Exhale?
No,
is that what
I think the first book I read was Mama and Disappearing Act. Okay,
so
that's what.
Is that what pulled you toward the genre of romance?
Yes. Yeah, but I need to back up. When in junior high school, in junior high school, I did romance books. When you had to do a book report, and everybody had to do a book report, and then you were asked to get up and tell what you write, what did you read, and the genre and all of that. And when I would get up, I think just the first couple of times I said romance novel. And so anytime I got up, the class would always say it for me, romance novel. So I guess I've been reading romance a long time. And this is what I say to you. I live in the real world, so please let me have happily ever after. W. Parks, what do you mean by, and you sort of alluded to this earlier in the interview, what do you mean by no one can write a big girl's love story better than a big girl? You know what? And that's also, I was featured in a magazine before I get to that, in Belle magazine. It was for plus-size women. I just, now, so she fixed that for me, my interviewer. But I feel like you have to walk in a plus-size woman's shoes to know how to write that story sincerely, because all plus-size women, nowadays they are, because we've accepted a plus-size woman. But when I wrote that first book and put that out, we were given, people looked at you as if you can't. No one really wants you because of your size. Mm-hmm. So therefore, we had low self-esteem, and we had low self-worth. And so that was one reason why I wrote this book. And all of my books feature plus-size women.
Okay.
Now, all of them. And now you may say, and I know there are a lot of authors who are writing plus-size women stories. Okay, and some of them are not plus-size women, and some of them are men. What I really do not like about some of the stories, they're loud-mouthed, big women, cussing and, just low class. And I don't like that. So all of my plus-size characters are educated, sophisticated, highly intelligent, and they are not looking for a man to validate them. See, that's a real plus-size woman. They're looking for a man to love them and accept them for who they are.
Okay. And that's good. And then also when a woman is plus-size, but she's healthy. So you see a plus-size woman, but she does exercise. It's not like she doesn't even care about her health. But she's healthy, and you say she has a good self-esteem, and she's not begging somebody, please love me because I don't think anybody will. So that is a positive image. And maybe someone who's walked in those shoes would be best to tell and develop that story. When did you start writing Senseless Misperceptions? And can you tell us about the process that you use to develop Senseless Misperceptions?
Okay, I started writing Senseless Misconception, I'm trying to remember, back, I think in 96 is when I started.
Mm-hmm.
I started, and like I said, I wrote it in a tablet. And after I finished writing, while writing, I did a little research. I bought, back then, wasn't anything about internet and all of that, ebooks. So I bought resources about writing romance, and that kind of stifled me a little bit. So and then I still talk to people, and so I was told, this is your style, to go with it, and I did. And of course, I met a lot of the arabesque African American authors. I went to Dallas and met Emma Rogers, who owns Black Images then. And and the late Frances Ray. Oh, I can name some. Emma.
She was an angel. Oh, she was sweet.
She encouraged me. And then Margie Walker, who was a mentor. They all were arabesque writers. And so they told me when I finished the book, I was told that publishing companies were not looking for stories about plus-size women. And one of the writers had just left that big romance conference, and so she said a couple of the other ladies were trying to sell their work, and they didn't want it. So I said, okay, I'll self-publish. Now, where I got the idea of self-publishing, because I didn't know anything, Kimberly Lawson, that's when she self-published her first books. And I said, okay, I can do that. And I found me a printer. It just so happened to be someone that we have always used with, for family businesses in the church, and we worked a deal, and the rest is history.
Okay.
And now,
go ahead.
The only thing is that I jumped out on faith. We printed a real nice book. I had a artist to do my cover, and went from there. I had no idea that I had to sell the book. When I say sell, promote myself.
Yes.
And so I learned that. But back then, it was expensive because I did a lot of traveling. But I truly promoted this book. And what really just pushed me over was I went to Chicago for a BBW pageant. There's a Big Beautiful Woman's pageant. And I met, her last name was Aline. I tried to remember her name. I have it written down somewhere. Anyway, she was editor for Belle magazine.
Okay.
And she told me, sister, we're going to support you. And at the time, I had a friend that was from New York, and he told me, he said, he was going to do me a big book signing. And so she said, well, whenever you come, contact me. So I went, I contacted that lady. I did a photo shoot. She did an article. We done an article on the story, and then she put, I think, 4 chapters. And
wow.
When that magazine came out, Denise, my phone just blew up.
Oh, my goodness.
That's how old school we were. You put your telephone in it. That phone blew up. And the thing about it, I subscribed to BBW magazine, but I had not received my magazine yet. And I told my sisters, I said, we need to go find this magazine and see what is it. And they had a beautiful picture and a wonderful. It was just wonderful. It was magical.
Oh,
and the rest,
that is wow. That is so. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for our listeners something like that could happen to you, whatever it is, your dream, your aspiration. I know somebody who created a hair product. I interviewed her for a different publication, and I said, how did you get your product in Whole Foods? And she said she just walked into the grocery store, went up to a manager, and asked, how can I get my hair products in here? Boom, done. You just have to, when the opportunity comes, be ready and don't talk yourself out of it. Go ahead and let yourself be blessed. Can you introduce us, W. Parks, can you introduce our off-the-shelf listeners to Nathan Collins and Jasper Simmons? What are their personalities like?
Jasper and Nathan. Jasper was shy, quiet, studious, and very smart. And self-esteem wasn't very low, but, she just wasn't sure of herself. Nathan was conceited, slightly arrogant, handsome, God's gift to woman. And this story was taking place in Prairie View at the university. He was going to graduate school, and he was taking some graduate classes for something else, but she was graduating from graduate school. Mm-hmm. And they met at an Omega party. And I need to say cute party because my brother's an Omega, and he said if it ever gets out that I was talking about them, he's going to sue me. He said, we'll sue you. But that's now the meeting, they weren't supposed. She met Wolf. That was the guy that she was supposed to be hooked up with. That's how I wrote that story at the very beginning, where she was with Wolf. He came to her rescue when she fell and down and got caught up with her trash can. And she was, trying to get to the administration building because her gown was too small. Her graduation gown was too small. So that's how they met. She met Wolf, and then, of course, he was standing around with his boys, who one was Nathan, and I can't remember who the other one. But at any rate, they were invited to the party. And when they were invited to the party, something happened, and then it changed. Now, let me tell you, when I wrote this book, I had her coupled off with one person, but this story wrote itself. And what I did, because Nathan was so arrogant and snotty about her being he referred to, man, don't you think she's a little too thick? Well, I said, okay, I'll fix you. You the one.
So what attracts Jasper to Nathan? They seem so different. What attracts
them? They are different. He mesmerized her. That's what it was. What attracted them together, period. He was her first boyfriend, first person first man that she really allowed to get close to her. And I think the reason why is because she was trying to do a good deed, because Wolf's ex-girlfriend came to that party, and she talked to Jasper. And Jasper is some of my readers have said, I'm just too goody-goody, but she was a goody-goody. And so she fixed it for her. All this girl wanted to do was talk to Wolf and tell him about her baby, their child. And then what she wanted to do, it wasn't that she ran out on him. Something happened. And so Wolf, she had to she got Wolf and his friend together to have a talk, and then she had to take Silk on the dance floor. And you remember, she couldn't dance. She had to take Silk on the dance floor, so that's how they got together. So all this chemistry just popped up.
Now, can you share 1 to 2 misperceptions that Nathan and or Jasper have about each other or someone else or an experience in the book?
Okay. Let me see. Cause I'm good at, I think my stories have elements of surprises, and I like for you to say what that what go, and they have to go back and read, because they missed that, or either they can't, they want to find out how did this happen. I'm trying to. Now I think, well, first of all, Jasper, she never would have looked at Silk because she just knew he was, he wouldn't give her the time of day. That's one misconception with her, with him. And he just wasn't her type. Like you said, they were different. Now, as far as Silk, the misconception about Silk, because he was Silky Silk, people thought he was a womanizer. He was not a womanizer. His heart had been broken also.
Okay.
And so things happened, and he was, he had been lied on and all of that kind of stuff. And, and when that happened, he went to, he enlisted in the service behind something that someone had said and accused him of. So the misconception with Silk is that he wasn't as arrogant and conceited as people thought he was. He had a heart, because him and Wolf were the bestest of friends, and they had each other's back. And he really had Wolf's back, especially when Wolf X came into the picture.
So you have to, you're looking at your characters like we do with people when we first meet them.
Yeah.
And psychologists have said we make a very quick second judgment on everybody we meet. And unfortunately, a lot of times those judgments are wrong because we don't even know the person yet. And we a lot of times make the judgment because they remind us of something from our past.
Right.
And so we make the judgment, and it sticks, and it's almost like the person has to prove to us that our judgment was wrong. And then like a great writer, so you get the people get this first. Then as they get to know the character, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. It's the same thing when we meet people. When we meet people every day, our judgments are not always right, and sometimes you just have to be willing to maybe I got that wrong, and get to know the person. What have readers been saying about senseless misconceptions? What have you been hearing from readers when they tell you about
now this book is, like I said, this book was done in 97. So what everybody wants to know, W. Fox, when are you going to put it on e-books? When can we, those who bought this book in 97 and 98 and 99 and 2000, I think was the last, they want to know when can they get this book again. So that's the biggest thing. The next thing, in the day when they were reading this book, they wanted to know, or either they said, oh, I know that tree. I remember that tree at Prairie View. Either they'll say, that happened to me. I just didn't get the man. So I have to let them know, this is romance. This is fiction. Happily ever after. I have to let them understand that.
What are some of the challenges? We're talking about another of W. Parks Brigham's books. What are some of the challenges that Gregory Adams Larson experiences in Destined to Be?
Just like you said earlier. Now, this child, when I write my stories, all of these my characters become my children, my grown children. With Gregory, great aunt raised him, okay, and he got with the wrong crowd. Even though he didn't, when I say the wrong crowd, a rowdy crowd. They didn't do drugs. Well, I didn't put that in there, but he was a child that was thrown away and got with an old aunt at 6 years old. So Kelly befriended him at 6 years old in kindergarten. He never forgot that. And so people thought because him, no one wanted him but his great aunt, that was a warning sign. But he was only 6. And then as he became a teenager, he was with a rowdy group. So they thought he was not going to be about anything. That was a misconception. And then, bless his heart, when he graduated from high school, his aunt had left him everything. And they thought he was going to squander that. That wasn't true. He invested his money and became the person that he really wanted to become.
Wow.
And people never knew he was the one that built up this little small town, renovated the businesses and homes. He made it possible for black-owned businesses and people who in black homes and whatever to remodel their homes, keep their family property. Now, Edna, Texas is a real town. That's where my daddy's people grew up.
Okay.
So that's a real little country town. I love small towns, so a lot of my stories are in small towns.
Okay.
And so that was the thing with Gregory. Now, Kelly thought Gregory was guilty of something, but he was not.
So it looks like
and
people
the thing about it, Kelly and Gregory were victims of circumstances. When I say behind friends, I think that's the best way I can say it without giving away the story.
Now, Kelly, you would think she would know him because she befriended him when they were 6 years old. But does she later, when they become adults, does she get with Gregory because she admires how he's dealt with the challenges he's faced, or does she feel sorry for him?
No, there's no pity at all. There's an attraction between the two. Now, she always had a feeling for him because they were all even though they broke them up in a certain grade, and that's what kind of they went their separate ways. But living in a small town, you can't help but to run into each other. And I feel like with him showing off and showing out with his friends, they kind of pushed her away, and he always had feelings for her too. So there was an attraction between them as young people. Now, what she was going to, if I'm not mistaken, because now, look, I got 10 stories now, and I wrote this story several years ago. If I'm not, she was going to invite him to a dance, and her best friend talked her out of it. And what she found out, he supposedly had said something derogatory about her. And so that's what started all of this, where she didn't like him. But he, he didn't say anything. It's just that he was accused of doing something. So as soon as he got old enough, he left Edna.
Okay.
Now, how did they meet again? In Atlanta. But this is what happened. And if I was to share, I would always share the first couple of chapters anyway. They meet each other, not knowing she met him and he met her, not knowing that they were, who their real identity was, on an airplane. And she snatched his bracelet, and the rest was history. They had that chemistry right then and there. That romantic chemistry that we talk about, romance writers. And so, but, never thinking, they didn't exchange numbers, anything like that. So, they weren't to meet again. But as destiny would have it, fate would have it.
Yes.
They met again.
Wow, destined to be. Now, without giving a story away, I know you. I think that when you show that they met in this small town, people don't have very low expectations of Gregory, and then they meet again in Atlanta. It's like you want to read the story to see what happens. So, but without giving the story away, what past? There's something in her past. What past does Kelly need to let go of? Can you tell that without giving the story away?
She needs to let go and forgive. it's going to be a couple of things. Well, yes, I guess I can, because you still. Well, let me see. I'm trying to see because I'm the one with the big mouth. No, can we take a long time? Let's see. I think what she needs to stand. She judged him behind what somebody say. Okay, that's it. She judged him with that he say, she say stuff. And she didn't really know where all of this came from and who was behind all of this. And then when she found out, she had to let go of all that hurt and pain, because this was somebody real close to her. And she had her reasons for why she did that. And this person that did that, they felt bad also. Gregory was just a victim of circumstances all the way around. He had no idea. And when he came back to Texas and he talked to this person, he also showed forgiveness and told her, that was okay. Let's move past all of this. So now let me just drop this in. All of my stories, I try to emphasize character and Christian traits. Forgiveness. We want God to forgive us. We need to forgive other people.
Yes. Yeah, even when you feel like they really, really hurt you.
Yes. Yeah. You need to move on because now one story, I don't know if you No Strings Attached, we'll wait. That story was really powerful. And I'll wait. I don't want to jump the gun.
I wanted to ask you, Destined to Be, is this your second novel? And if so, was writing your second?
Yeah, this was my second.
Was it easier? You already had a book under your belt.
No. You know what? This book was not easy. As a matter of fact, the next Promises and Who Am I Supposed to Love, they were not easy to write. And I'm going to tell you what I did, what happened. The story was easy, but I felt like I was trying to write something better than Senseless Misconception. I felt like I had grown as a writer. And I made the mistake of asking people, which book do you like the best? Senseless Misconception. I couldn't get past that. And then, so I kept, instead of, of course I'm writing a good story, but I was still stuck on trying to make it better. And so an author friend told me, sometimes your reader will have their favorite story, and you cannot change their. Yeah. You just. So she said, just write your stories, Wanda. Just keep writing and writing. So I let it go.
That's a good message for any of our listeners who are writers. To not, you're not going to be able to please all your readers. Just write your best story. And readers do have their favorite books. They'll just say, I hear about Terry McMillan. Some people will say, oh, I like Mama the best. That was her best one. And some people will say, Waiting to Exhale. You can't change that. You can't change that.
No, you can't. You can't. And once I learned that, then the rest was history. I'm just popping them out.
Can you give us a synopsis for You Were Meant for Me?
Oh, I just love that story. First of all, that story was taking place in Allensville, and Allensville is a made-up town. As in doing my promotions, I said I love small towns, so I bought my own. Bought my own. Now, Allenville it's a series. Allenville Matchmaker series, and that's what You Were Meant for Me is the first one. It's this story is where the Allenville Matchmakers, the church group have a matchmakers group, and what they do, they set up socials and events for young Christian adults to meet other young Christian adults, for men to meet women. And so the church is getting ready to hire a new minister because the senior minister is getting ready to retire, And all of my stories are, a lot in Allenville there, around there at the church. All of my characters go to church, and we all go to a Church of Christ. And in my I don't know. Well, I know in one book I really go in detail about the church, but I do let you know what the Church of Christ is about. And so they're getting ready to get a new minister, and he's single and he's young. And naturally, in any church, a young minister, older people get a little bit antsy. They think they need a wife, and so
right.
the elders, the minister who was the retiring minister was asked to help get his wife on the job, because they were part of the matchmaking group, and she and her sisters think they are the top ones to bring together a couple. And so that's what she did. Now Tyson, that's his name, Tyson did not want them to hook him up, as he would say. He wanted to he already met someone in Allenville that the chemistry was there.
Okay.
All right. Now, the person that he met, who is Jetta Faye Anderson, she also wants someone. She's just like any young woman. She wants the forever after, the family, the love, and on and on. But Jetta Faye, and she met Tyson, and she felt that chemistry. But what happened? He's the minister, and she feels like she's not worthy enough to be a minister's wife because of her past.
Mm.
In the prologue, it lets you know Jetta Faye left Chicago practically running. She was in all kind of trouble, and just so happened she was innocent. Well, she was getting ready to serve some time. She was innocent, and so she, left and she went to nursing school, got a certification, and so she was told about the lady who her professor gave her, recommended her to get a job in Allenville, and that's where she went. So now what it says on the can I just read the synopsis on the back?
Sure, absolutely.
Allenville matchmakers are at it again, but this time they were called upon. The church has hired single Tyson Brinkley as their new minister. The leadership insists he needs a wife to please the senior saints. Tyson wants no part of their matchmaking scheme, not knowing their choice was the one who captured his heart during a previous visit. Problem? Jetta Faye Anderson has no desire to be a minister's wife. It's up to him and the matchmakers to make her see they're meant to be. And it is, and I'm not saying it because I wrote it. This is the sweetest little. Yes. And this is the kind of stuff I read, Denise. I love that. I say, oh, that's so cute. I love to read those kind of stories.
Now, tell us about some of the other books in the series. This is the first book you were meant for me in the series.
This is the first one. And then the second one is called You Belong to Me. And this is Jetta Faye. When she came to Allenville, she befriended a friend by the name of Tricia. And they became the bestest of friends. And so Tricia meets her at Jetta Faye's wedding. Tricia meets her let's see what I want to call him. Her childhood sweetheart. They always had a crush on each other. But, it was said that he could be gay. And so that was, so that was a big thing. So that's where this story takes place. Now, all of these stories they stand alone. But I always tell people, read You Were Meant to Me first, because You Belong to Me kind of spins off. And so Tricia is a physical education teacher who's, has that stigma about, just jogging suits, never looking ladylike except at church. And then even at church, she wore polyester pants, and I'm trying to think the name of this fabric with these shirts. Denise, and these are the kind of shirts I wear also. I used to wear. But anyway, they're that shiny. It's the shiny fabric where you wash, put it dry, you done. And so that's how she was, just plain Jane. So she gets a makeover. And then the next book, You're the One for Me. Well, You're the One for Me came out afterwards. No Strings Attached. That's book 3. Now, book 3 is really something. It's really powerful. Yes, because this story, No Strings Attached, and it's about this young lady, Ryan, comes from Arkansas, and she moved to Allenville. She had to just start over. She packed up and just had to start all over. Why? She was getting ready to get married, had bought her wedding dress, planned everything. Her fiance and her sister betrayed her. And so, it wasn't, keep from going into detail. She left there devastated, traumatized, and the last thing she told her mom, she would never love another woman's son. Oh, but Chocolate Swirl came into her world.
Oh, God.
Chocolate Swirl came into her world, and the rest is. So now, why would you read this story? To see how he breaks her down, to see if she's going to ever forgive her sister and her fiance. So there's a lot of forgiveness. When I wrote this story, I had to do some, I do research, period. But I had to ask some girls, how would you forgive? What would it take? What would you do? And, baby, they wanted to fight and all kind of stuff. So that's book 4. No, that's book 3.
In the series.
Then there's book 4, You're the One for Me. And then book 5, We Belong Together. Now, that's the end of that series. And they're all standalone. But I said, okay, enough of Allenville. Even though, now, I'm not going to lie, I do have a couple of stories where it takes place in Allenville. But the matchmakers had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
The matchmakers had nothing to do with it.
Okay. Now, how many novels, because I know some writers, they churn them out, to a novel every 3 months. They've got a new one coming out. How long does it generally take you to finish a novel?
It just depends, Denise. This Allenville series, all those books were written last year. Now, I'm going to tell you what happened.
Oh, so you wrote 4 books last year.
Oh, yeah. Well, probably more than that. Let's see. Because this is 2016. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I wrote 6 books last year.
Wow.
Now, and it just depends on the flow. As a matter of fact, I have another book that's written, so I need to say 7. But now you have to remember, I'm retired, and I can sit up all night and write, and I can get up when I get ready. So that's one thing. The story has to flow. My story flows because I guess I see them as a movie, and they won't let me sleep. So, it's just going over and over. So I have to get up and do some writing. So it really depends. Now, I'm writing a story now, and I started on that story in November, and I'm still writing it. I would have seen the time I would be through.
Okay.
So, I just cannot pinpoint. Now, one book that I wrote, Who Am I Supposed to Love? Oh, that's a good one, too. Who Am I Supposed to Love? That book, and that's a very in-depth book, but I bet it took me about 3 months to write that book.
Well,
and that's my first racial story.
Yeah, but you say, you have time. A lot of writers have another job, so you have the time
a family.
Yes. You have the time to pour yourself into
your
novel. But then there are other writers who have other jobs who they just turn them out.
Because, back in the day, Donna Hill, I'll never will forget. Donna Hill wrote a book a month if she didn't do two. Yes, ma'am,
goodness.
and she had a job. And Brenda Jackson, did the same. It may not at least every other month.
Wow.
So it depends. It's discipline, and that's what they said. But see, I know one had a job where she had to go out of town, so that was her downtime. Where she would write it, to relax before she would leave. But it just depends, and I tell writers because they want to know, well, what did you do? I wrote every day. Every day. Now, like I said, I'm retired. When I was working, I stopped writing. After I put out Sisters Misconception, Destined to Be was supposed to be the next one. As a matter of fact, I started Destined to Be in 1999, and it was written for the millennium. Look at the millennium. But for 2000, and I did not.
Yes.
I did not get it complete. So I had to go back and do a lot of rewriting. And then I just said, okay, Wanda, you can't put yourself under that kind of pressure. When you retire, you have all the time in the world. And that's what I do.
Okay. What lessons did you learn while writing your very first novel that you continue to use today?
Now, really and truly, the very first novel, I can't say. And I'm gonna. And the reason why, that book was so well received. It just what that book did. It gave me the confidence and all of that to just do more, and I didn't. The second book is what taught me, lots of lessons. Okay, because my first book was short and simple, even though it's a full novel. It was. Well, you said what I still use. Okay, I got to the point. I painted the picture. I used the five senses to present the story, and that's what people really love. I could see him. I could smell him. I can feel him. That's what I did. I can see what she has on. I love to do that. I can see the room. So now those are the things that I have kept going on in my story.
Very interesting. You're the first writer I've heard say that with the five senses. So that's another tip there. Yes. So the reader can really feel like the story. They're part of the story.
Not only you're going to see, you'll get emotional. When I wrote Sisters Misconception, I got teary-eyed. I said, wait a minute, girl, you writing this. But, when it brings tears to my eyes, then I know I've done it with readers.
Yes. Now, are any of your novels, you say some do, most take place in small towns, but in some of your towns are fictional, but are any of your novels based on real-life events? And if not, where do you get the ideals for your stories?
Okay. Yes, they're based on real events because now one thing most of them, well, not most of them, but several of my books, I center around holidays. I love holidays. I start with Halloween, end up with New Year's, okay? So one book we did, Who Am I Supposed to Love? We did tailgating in that book, and that happens in Prairie View. And I, tell where they, during the football games, homecoming, they have big tailgating parties. Let's see. Now, in You Were Meant for Me, I fixed it where in February they did Black History Week with the children. They did rodeo because we do that in March here in Texas. We're getting ready for the big rodeo right now in Houston. The rest of it I mix up. I have an imagination out of this world. I always have, and I guess always will.
But that's a good thing. As a creative person, that's actually a blessing. What really as we come down to the last few minutes of today's show, Wanda, what advice would you share for someone who's in today's market? This changed since we both entered the book publishing arena, but in today's market, what advice would you have for someone who's thinking about self-publishing their first romance novel?
Okay. The first thing I would tell any and everybody is to be sure to get a professional editor. You can't use your friends. You can't use your English teacher. You can't use, these people who they know their job, okay? But to be an editor is something different. You have to look. It's more than just grammar and punctuation. So you need to get a professional editor. And the next thing, when you pick that person, you need to do some research to make sure they are who they are, because I made that mistake. That's number one. Number two, now I enjoyed designing my covers myself. I love it, but I'm a creative person. I'm just not creative with writing, Denise. I'm creative with bulletins. Doing teaching school. Okay, I had to be a magician to get the idea over to the children. So my creativity is wide range. So I enjoyed making my own covers. Now, what I self-published with Create Space. Now, they work well for me.
Okay.
Now, I've heard some people, have complaints or whatever. You don't jump into where these people tell you, these self-publishing companies tell you we can do A, B, C, D, and charge you such amount of money. I've
yes.
$5,000.
No.
Yeah. So you have to be careful with that. With your first book, go to Create Space. Create Space, I like to say, is for dummies, and I have some students that they do not like to hear me say that. But I don't mind saying I'm ignorant to some things, okay? And what you do, if you're having a problem, you call those people, and they will talk you through everything you need. And then you're not paying anything yet. Now, they do have services, but if you stick with it, you can get it right.
Right. With that piece of advice you shared, same as, and I thank you for sharing that, same as if you're looking for a literary agent or a printer, just do your research, because everybody out here isn't legit, and you could get yourself in a situation where you're out of tens of thousands of dollars, and you're in a bad spot. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because I'm told there are a lot of writers who they dig into their entire savings. They believe in their book, and they get ripped off. And I hate to see that happen to somebody.
It happens.
I appreciate you sharing that. Do your research. Talk to other writers. You should never take on a literary agent who charges a reading fee, or somebody that tells us if you give us like $5,000 or $10,000, we'll make you a New York Times bestseller. I would say run.
You need to. You run. Because even those who are picked up by publishers, they still have to promote themselves.
Yes.
So that's one thing we need. Don't let anybody tell you, I'll make your book a bestseller. No, ma'am, no, sir. You have to do that.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that. Hopefully the numbers of writers who end up losing everything, that number goes down to zero. Where can off-the-shelf listeners get copies of your books?
You can, Amazon.com.
Okay, Amazon.
Amazon.com.
Are you on social? If you're on social networks, please tell us where we can find you on social media.
W. Parks Brigham. That's my Facebook page. If you put in W. Parks Brigham, you'll find me. My Facebook page, my website. Now my email. You know what my email address?
Whatever you want to share with the listeners.
My email address is wparksbrigham@writeme.com. And my Facebook
and W. Parks. Go ahead.
And my everything is W. Parks Brigham, capital W, capital Parks Parks, and then capital B Brigham Righam. I make it real simple. That's you put me in the computer, I'm gonna pop up.
Okay, and her website again. We so thank Wanda Parks for being here with us. It's her website. Please go over and support her, wparksbrigham.com. Again, that's WPARKSBRIGHAM.com. And check out her books, her book series, and her new books. And she's working on a new story now. Last year she knocked out 6 or 7 books, which I find incredible. So please go support her again, wparksbrigham.com. And thank you for being here with us today on Off the Shelf.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You were a blessing to our listeners. To Wanda, we want to thank you. And please tell your friends, book lovers, your colleagues, family members everywhere. Tune in to Off the Shelf Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll bring you another great guest next Saturday. Again, Off the Shelf Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Spread the word. We're heading into our 12th year. Thank you so much, Wanda. As I always tell our listeners, remember, you are amazing. You are incredible. You are awesome. Go out and create a fabulous day for yourself. And happy Valentine's Day, and enjoy the long weekend with the President's Day holiday. Wanda, I'll shoot you an email. Bye for now.
Okay, thank you.